What's up, YouTube? So I am going to do an attempt to run a reef tank, or at least a frag tank, on rock salt, where every forum I've looked at, they say no, make sure to get the good salt. You can't trust what's in the rock salt. It won't work. But I actually had a tank I set up, little 30-40 gallon, where I was just getting live rock ready and on rock salt. For the heck of it, I put a light over it and it started growing coralline algae, leading me to believe that it is possible to run a tank on rock salt. I'm not advocating for it, but just kind of something when you're in a pinch, use it. This tank, it has a history to it, but lastly, a couple ruined it by trying to buff it out. And then they told me it leaked. I had sold it to them and they brought it back. And wasn't until the next day that I actually even really looked at it and saw all the scratches they put on it. So the tank is shot, so I might as well use it for this. For return pump, I actually have this old skimmer. It'll be my return pump, so the good thing there is every ounce of water that comes back in will be skimmed. And I am just now starting from my RO over there, running it across, starting to fill the tank. So it should take probably about 15 hours by my calculation. For this old 55-gallon tank, and then I will load up some salt, and actually I'll do that right now. I'm gonna load up the rock salt. I don't really know how much, kind of initially guessing. Start with that, and then measure it out as the tank fills and go from there. And as you can see, I'm going to use a set of old T5s I have here, some Hamiltons. They were great on a 75-gallon tank I had. I no longer need them there. Could use an LED I have laying around too, but I'm going to use some T5s. Go with that. Really, the great thing about this is everything is, I've been in a reefing about 14-15 years now, so I have a lot of extra stuff, and I'm just going to use a lot of old stuff to see if this works. So far it's been filling about 6 hours. Doing all right. So right now I just took some frag rock out of my sump. It is just adding the bacteria and everything to the water, getting it prepared. Just have a circulating pump flowing it around. And I'll give it a few days. I've got to figure out the skimmer, just a plumbing issue there. And it's my skimmer and return pump, but everything's getting ready. Alright, so all up and running. Protein skimmer is doing its thing. A lot of junk for first run, but I didn't exactly clean the tank perfectly either. So next I'll be adding the lights. Don't really need a heater. Salinity is pretty much got lucky. I kind of spitballed it, how much I poured in. When I finished the water, it's right here, just slightly over the high side, but I'm not worried about that. I could add a little more water. It's not topped out. I could probably fit another gallon back here, but I think I'll just leave it as it is. Let it run. It's been probably 3 days since I added the frags. Or not the frags, but just the live rock, frags of live rock to get it started. I'm sure the bacteria has multiplied 1 billion times by now. So next I'm going to set up the electrical, add the T5s that I have up there, and frankly I'm going to put in a couple frags and see what happens. Alright, so second day in, protein skimmer, still skimming, decent little amount. This is how much I've taken out of it so far. One problem is, not really a problem, but it is returning a lot of bubbles, but the skimmer hasn't been used in years. Something that's still breaking in and sending out the bubbles. Thinking about adding some extra balls that I have to the back there, which is typically where they'd go anyways. Has the overflow in here. I'll add the T5 light and probably do that either tomorrow or the day after, just to give it time to circulate, skim, get the junk out before I start trying to grow anything, and then I'll move some stuff from my frag tank into here. Lights are on. Very cheap setup I have going on here, but it is functional. Everything you need for a reef tank. I have no additives, strictly the salt. This salt is Morton Pure Natural Water Softener Crystals. I looked it up, comes from a mine, probably 100-year-old mine they have in Louisiana, not far off the Gulf of Mexico. So let's see what happens with this old ocean salt. Just so you guys know, I'm not completely crazy, you know, a little bit. This is my 125 Reef. It's not absolutely perfect. It's been growing back since 2016 when 90% of my tank wiped out, but it's doing pretty good. Fortunately, I had to kill a few fish in the last month. Thanks to bringing in a few fish. But overall, the corals are thriving well, and a lot of these I'm gonna take frags and try them out in the rock salt, especially like the common things, the GSP, the leathers, maybe some mushrooms, maybe some hammers, Xenia a little bit. I used to have this entire left side of the tank completely covered in Xenia, but I sold most of it so I could change it up and expand to other things. Maybe I'll try some of these little SPS. We'll see. We'll see what grows, what doesn't. Maybe everything will die, maybe everything will thrive. We'll find out. Alright, so I just added the first corals to my very ghetto rock salt tank here. And kind of a little mix. One mushroom, a few leathers, cactus coral, some pulsing Xenia. Luckily I do have some purple growing already, so hopefully that spreads throughout the tank, but we'll see. Those are just frag rocks, nothing on them. No real purpose in the way I put them. I know there's some pallies on there as well. We'll see what happens. Today is Thursday. Alright, first update. The Xenia that I put in here instantly melted within about 6 hours of being put in here and is dead. I don't know if it all is, but every stalk I look at that's still in there is not doing well. Some on that rock. It's one messed up tank. Not too surprised, because Xenia moved or unhappy will melt, and it was already not happy in the frag tank, just barely hanging on. So I just pissed it off more and it died. The leathers though are, the polyps are already starting to extend. Sorry, this acrylic is so messed up. But the polyps are starting to extend on the leathers. The cabbage coral, it was already hurt in that tank. The pallies are completely closed up. There's a little bit of Xenia on that rock. Frag. It sucks. Well, I'll give more updates later. This is a frag tank I'm breaking down where the corals came from. Left a few. They're fine. This This zinnia is still alive, but about 20 hours in, looks like all the corals are not doing well. The leathers are not standing up. Definitely no polyp extension. Looks like they're just shrinking in. Even the coralline algae looks like it's dying. Cactus coral is doing nothing. There's still some zinnia on the rocks. It hasn't melted, but it doesn't look good. The pallies are shrunk. They're not opening. They're not melting, but they're definitely not opening. That leather looks pretty much dead. We'll see. Salinity is fine, temperature is fine, flow is fine. Skimmer's not pulling anything at this point. So I think my hypothesis that things would at least survive, if not thrive, is wrong. Well, we'll find out, but it's looking to be wrong, and it would appear that rock salt can't even be used in a pinch. All right, 48 hours in, the leathers are completely black, dead. Coralline algae is bleached. The cactus coral, you can barely see through this acrylic, is white. The only thing still alive, surprisingly, are some zinnia and some pallies on this rock. They're still alive. They're closed up. They're not happy, but they're alive. I have enough zinnia and pallies to not worry about wanting to save them, so I am going to just let them roll and see what happens over the next couple of days. I fully expect them to die, but maybe, you know, being the weeds of the tank that they are, maybe they'll pull through. Here's one telling sign about the viability of rock salt, is that well over a weekend of adding frags, or coral frags, but rubble rock that has plenty of existing algae on it, even hair algae on that one. There is no algae growth anywhere in the tank where it didn't come in. So even though I leave these T5s on probably at least 12 hours a day, no algae is taking place, which tells me that it's not a very livable environment. Alright, we are 16 days on this experiment from when I first filled the tank, 15 days from when I added this rubble rock in to introduce bacteria, and 6 days now since I added these frags. And at this point, the frags are pretty much dead. All the leathers are dead. Coralline algae is dead, or at least completely bleached. The zinnia melted, most of it melted the first day, but you can see there's still a little bit left there. It's all closed up. The pallies are all closed up. They're alive, surprisingly, but they're pissed off, just slowly dying. This cactus coral is bleaching, but I've seen cactus coral before where I've been able to bring it back when it's at this stage. So pretty much rock salt. Maybe you could use it in a pinch or mix it in if you only have, you need 20 gallons and you have 10 gallons of regular salt and you have to use something else other than just fresh. It may get you through a tight period. Don't expect majority of your corals to live, but some do. So it might get you through that. A few changes I could have done on this tank to make it better. I had to add the circulating pump because the protein skimmer I started using hasn't really done its job. Not enough flow to be good for this size of tank. Has a return pump as well. And the skimmer, you can hear it pulsing. Something's happened with the airline. It must not have a good connection at the bottom. Down here where I have the pump, kind of used some janky tubing to set it up. It was working well at first, but it's kind of come undone. Either way, here's a clean tank set up. T5s, yeah, I could use new bowls, but there was nothing wrong with these, just other than a bit of age, gone over 6 months. I would say my hypothesis that you could grow corals, or they could at least survive in rock salt, was wrong. I would say it's absolutely, if you need it in a pinch, you could use it, but it's a bad idea overall. I do find it very interesting that no algae is growing on the acrylic or on the bottom. This rock was covered in hair algae and even some red algae, and it seems like it's slowly just dying off the rock instead of spreading. I would have expected to spread, especially with the depth in here. So I rarely test water on my main tank. I haven't tested it here at all other than the salinity level. And I'm sure if I tested the water, it'd be pretty bad at this point since so many corals have died, but it wouldn't have turned bad enough in 6 days where if I used, regular salt, I'm sure it'd still be fine. The corals would be open. I am going to do a second video when I have a little bit of time. I'm going to use the exact same setup, other than I'm going to use this pump. I'm going to set it up to be a return pump. I'm going to take this skimmer out. I'll either take it out and switch to a different skimmer or get this one operating better. But I'm going to completely empty this tank, clean it out, and then set it up the same way with the RODI I run over here. But this time I'm going to use more salt, Instant Ocean. I have a box. It's like 12 bucks for 50 gallons of it. And I'm going to set up the exact same tank with regular reef salt. That way we can test it to see if it was strictly the rock salt or maybe this whole tank is cursed. But I'm pretty sure it'll be successful. And then frankly, kind of like the idea of just having a frag tank out here in my garage. So I'm going to keep it running on Instant Ocean. Alright, I just emptied the tank all day. Took several hours because I just used a little air hose running to a dead spot in my backyard. I don't mind the salt going to. And looking in now, I'm surprised to see that this rock where there was coralline algae still has pallies that are alive, just not happy. And this rock over here, which the acrylic's so bad I couldn't see it, is full. It actually has what appears to be a Xenia that's still alive on it. In fact, if you look at the one in the top left, it looks it's still, can't tell if it's trying to pulse or that's just movement. But I am surprised to see that they're alive at all. There's also this head of Xenia that came off a rock I took out earlier, but appears to still be alive. So 6-7 days in, some corals are still alive. They're pissed off, but just a testament to pallies and Xenia, some of the weeds of the reefing hobby, that they can still be alive after this much time. Oh yeah? Alright, the tank and its components are washed out. Time to restart. Alright, so I'm starting to refill this tank. We're going to go with regular Instant Ocean salt. Set it back up almost the same way. A couple differences. Not going to use the protein skimmer as a return pump. Just going to put in a different, actually try this skimmer again. Now that I figured out there was a part they forgot to take out of the factory. So hopefully it'll work. And then I put in a standard return pump down here just to give it higher flow, because the protein skimmer just wasn't high enough flow to make it worth it as a return pump. Hardly any more water was moving into the back. So fill up the back first and we'll get it going. Alright, so the tank is set up and running again. All the salt currently poured in. I'll give it a day to mix, and I'll throw in some, not frags, but just some starter rock to get the bacteria going. Put the T5s back on top. Still filling very slowly with some water. I don't know if you can see it draining in there. Changes since I had the rock salt in here. So I set up a return pump. As I mentioned, the protein skimmer wasn't doing a very good job. Added these weird bio balls that I got with another tank. They look like somebody homemade 3D printer kind of things. They're huge, whatever the surface area. And I added this Coral Life filter and protein skimmer that wasn't working well before, but I have another video where I found there was a piece that they must have forgotten to take out of the factory. Pulled that out and got it working well. No longer blowing water out the collection cup. So we'll see how everything pans out, and then we'll test it with some corals. Alright, everything is set back up. It is cycling on Instant Ocean. Only differences again are the return pump and adding this filter slash protein skimmer that we're testing out here. So, alright, first corals are in the reset up tank. One is a large cactus coral. It's growing all over this rock. The other one, again, the leather and pulsing Xenia. That was in my display tank. See how these do. Alright guys, so the tank has been set up a few days. I've transferred a bunch of extra corals that I have in here, things that were kind of taking up my display tank, and several of these leathers, some Xenia, the one cabbage coral, and I'll kind of keep adding to it. I think I'm gonna start a little frag business. I do sell on OfferUp as things grow out, and I think I'll document it along the way of how easy or difficult it is to do a frag business, make any profit, or at least really the goal is just enough to pay for my tank for my hobby. So I will document that on the way.